What's up, everybody? Welcome on into OneSoccer.ca. Andi Petrillo, Gareth Wheeler with you. Charlie O'Connor Clark of CamPL.ca joining us today. A lot of topics to dive into, but we do have an announcement to make. If you've been following the Canadian women under-20 team, they're right now competing in the CONCACAF Championship. They finished top in their league. They've now moved on to the round of 16. This tournament acts as a qualifier for the Under-20 FIFA World Cup, which is happening this summer. So the women are looking good, undefeated, dominant in their 3 group stage games. We, right here on OneSoccer on our YouTube channel, will carry their round of 16 game versus the Cayman Islands. That's Friday, 7 p.m. ET. That is for free. Tune in, support the Canadian national team, the under-20s. These are women that I'm pretty sure quite a few of them we will see with the senior national team moving forward. So great to support them now, and we will show that on our YouTube channel. Gentlemen, let's talk about a North American in Europe. And we all know that there's still a stigma there. And hey, maybe even works in the reverse. I mean, can you imagine a European coach coming and coaching an NHL team, right? Like, we understand that a lot of times you want to stick to who you know and who you feel knows the sport best. And in Europe, they still feel that that would be a European coach. Bob Bradley, currently with Toronto FC, he obviously dealt with it when he was in Europe. And how about Jesse Marsch? He went on over to Europe. We know, joined the German League 2018. He was, part of the management team and also as head coach, RP Leipzig, Red Bull Salzburg. Now he's in the Premier League. He's taken over with Leeds United. And Gareth, I'm going to start with you on this one because I know we've had a little bit of fun with this on the show in the past, especially when it comes to Ted Lasso, which, by the way, awesome show. Get on the bandwagon. He kind of made a little quib where he just goes, I don't think Ted Lasso helps our case here in Europe. True or false?
I think it's true. I think you're right. I think that the way that the British footballing audience looked at Bob Bradley when he was manager of Swansea City, told a story. I think that Chris Armas on the Manchester United bench tells the story. And I think that Jesse Marsch, the reaction amongst, British soccer fans that, an American's coming in to take over that role. I think there is a stigma there, and it has nothing to do with coaching acumen or how good of a manager that the individual may be. It's about the way that he speaks, which I find a little bit prehistoric, out of date for me. I think we deal with it a little bit here in an opposite way, that I think a lot of people, whether it be coaches or broadcasters, are much more familiar with an English accent when it's presented over here. It adds, in some people's minds, an authenticity. But I think it's absolutely ridiculous that, a guy like Marsch with a very good resume, highly regarded, the sentiment almost sets him back before his team even kicks the ball with him as a manager. I think it's problematic, which is funny because he actually does speak the language, and a lot of other managers, when they come over, like Bielsa, who just was relieved of his duties, had to speak through a translator. And that wasn't a problem whatsoever. He was so highly regarded at Leeds and beyond. But it seems like Jesse Marsch is going to be managing from a deficit to begin with. So I think some of these antiquated or older ways of thinking need to go by the wayside now. It's a global game. Even in this country, the way that we look at things and listen to things, I think that needs to change as well. And the more individuals with strong resumes to be, to be managers that are American, Canadian, what have you, I think that it bodes well for the game, different ideas going to different countries. So I don't think that it should be a problem, but I think that Jesse Marsch is spot on, and Ted Lasso's unfortunately what many people think about, even though he ends up winning and doing well and all of his players love him. So
right?
It's kind of like it's kind of like a backhanded compliment, but yeah, I do think that stigma exists, and I think that it's time for it to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely a stigma and a prejudice, I think, especially among media, especially in England in particular. I mean, remember when Bob Bradley got completely slaughtered for saying PK, and I think he said road games, and they didn't like that. And he ended up being in charge of Swansea City for like 10 or 11 games. He didn't really get a chance to actually turn a struggling team around. So there is this prejudice, and I think it is specific to American, and if we were to see a Canadian coach in a level like the Premier League, it would probably extend to them as well. But as Gareth mentioned, kind of when coaches come in from other countries that are maybe perceived more as footballing nations, they come in and even if they don't speak the language or anything, they come in and they're talked about as bringing in elements of their country and the way that football is played in their country.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that can't be the case for American coaches who come in, because obviously there is a difference in the way the game is played and viewed and coached in the United States. Why can't there be elements of that that can transfer into a new level? So it is kind of an unfortunate stigma, but I do really like Jesse Marsch as a coach, and I'm kind of excited to see if he can maybe flip the script on this a little bit. I think it helps that he's very cognizant of the challenges in front of him right now. You know, he made these self-deprecating jokes about Ted Lasso and a lot himself. He knows what the challenges are, and I think he's learned a lot probably from Bob Bradley's experience in particular. So if anybody's going to do it, I think it could be him that kind of turns things around there. And I absolutely hope that he does, because he's a very good football coach.
Don't you think it's foolish? Like we're judging people on their accent or
Thank
lack
you.
thereof, or like soccer, football,
exactly.
or penalty PK. It's just,
Yeah,
I don't know why. Like, I don't think that necessarily exists in hockey or basketball and other sports, Andy. I think it's just there's this ownership over the game of football. I don't know. It's very bizarre to me, because I don't know about you two. I personally don't care. Like, as long as you know they have good ideas, they can explain the game, articulate their thoughts. It shouldn't matter whatsoever.
You can call the game whatever you want as long as you win.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, we understand that sports have a vernacular. You know that there are certain things you say when you're talking about golf, when you're talking about football in the NFL sense, or when you talk about baseball. Like, we get all this. We know that there's certain vernacular, but you're right. Sometimes when you're such a purist, to the point where you mock other people, I mean, now it's just snobbery as far as I'm concerned. At that point, now you've now ventured into the world of snobbery, and that's ridiculous. Whether they call it a clean sheet or they call it a shutout, like, you know what they're saying. To your point, Gareth, you know what they're saying. They've conveyed the message. Let's not be snobs and pick on people about it. You know what they're talking about. And he clearly has the intelligence. He's been there since 2018. He's clearly doing something right. Look at what he can bring to the team as well. And anyways, wish him the best of luck. But I just thought that was really, really funny as well, how he knows. He understands, how he's viewed there. But I hope he doesn't let it bog him down. I hope they don't have it bog him down. Someone who's been a part of the Premier League for a very long time, in fact, 19 years, owner of Chelsea, that's Roman Abramovich, as we know, a Russian oligarch, someone who made a lot of money being a huge supporter of Vladimir Putin, as we continue to watch just with absolute horror what's going on in Ukraine right now, and the sanctions that continue to follow, especially in the sporting world. But the reason why he's now going to put up for sale, we're hearing it's about a price tag of about $2 billion, is because he knows that the UK will lobby financial sanctions now against certain Russian oligarchs. And he feels it's probably best for him to step away. And obviously doesn't want the club to get hurt, obviously doesn't want his pockets to get hurt. But here's the thing. So we know that there is a Swiss mega gajillionaire who's interested in this, Gareth. But immediately, Mr. Conor McGregor tweeted out that he was quite interested in this and he wanted to explore it. Now, we also know he's done this with your beloved club, Manchester United. Could this be a thing of beauty, a match made in heaven, or could this be a train wreck?
Well, it would be a train wreck because, as you alluded to, Conor McGregor is a red. Like, he's a Manchester United supporter. Why would you want to go out and splash the cash for a club you don't even support? I get the desire to go out and own a piece of one of the top footballing clubs in the world today. But if there was any play to make, it would be for Manchester United. I don't think he's rich enough, though, Andy. Like, it's going to be, a mix of reportedly a Swiss billionaire, an American billionaire. Like, that's the valuation. What is it, like $3 billion right now?
Yeah.
I forget which comedian does the bit. Like, there's one thing being rich, there's another thing being wealthy, and wealthy is on an entire different level. And I don't know, unless, what does he have? Like, does he have rum or rye? What does he have? Like, unless it's doing exceptionally well. I'm not whiskey. That's it. Yeah. Unless it's like the best selling whiskey in the world, I'm not sure how McGregor would be able to afford it anyways.
No, what does he make?
I can't imagine it is.
No, 200 million. I think he makes a fight, or I mean, right now he's got a broken leg and he's recovering, but he'd have to fight 10 times.
Floyd Mayweather. Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't know, but Charlie, I don't know if you remember that pregame speech he gave the Boston Bruins a couple years ago in the NHL. Can you imagine what those pregame speeches would be like for Chelsea?
There aren't. Well, for one thing, there aren't a lot of greater matches made in hell for me than Conor McGregor and the Boston Bruins. But personally, I'm not a fan of him or of celebrity owners in sports, really. Particularly, I don't think that that's necessarily great for the teams that they own. It just
why not though? We're going to get into this conversation as the show goes on, but if you have a passionate owner that's willing to invest as well as maintain the integrity of what the club means in terms of its history, its community, and ways to take that forward, then I think it's a mix. So I don't care if it's a celebrity or someone else, but I think that you just need an understanding of what the supporters are all about, what the club's all about, and willing to, uphold those high standards. Like to me, the bar for ownership is kind of gone sideways, where it doesn't matter where your money comes from. It doesn't matter what you stand for. It doesn't matter about the community. I think that oftentimes now people are just turning a blind eye to see the money that comes into the game and what it could potentially mean in the transfer market or what big name players can come there. I think that we need to be able to draw a line in the sand here and say, there needs to be some sort of checklist to uphold the values that these clubs are supposed to represent and the leagues that they play in as well.
Yeah, but I think that those are things that you rarely get with kind of the celebrity owners, the vanity project owners that kind of come in and it's sort of about them rather than the club, right? I mean, we all know that Conor McGregor is really good at personal marketing, right? He's got, I'm sure, a big team behind him, but he's always in the spotlight. He's always getting that attention. And I don't think that that's necessarily a great thing for a football club, especially one like Chelsea that has spent a ton of money in the last couple of years. And it's, to varying degrees of success.
Well, Charlie, I'll say this. If Conor McGregor, who at least stands up to be like the everyday man and has to, his actions, he needs to take responsibility, for his fans. Do you think someone like him is going to go try to run off and put his club into a super league? I don't think so. So we're dealing with with owners of wealthy clubs who basically are anonymous figures that operate in the shadows. Is that better? No, at least there's some kind of accountability when there's notoriety surrounding that celebrity. So I'll say that much.
All I have to say is that if that ever came to fruition, just don't put him in the stands, because if things go sideways for Chelsea one day and he's in the stands, I don't think that's going to end well for anybody involved.
Don't put him in the away end for sure.
Or maybe for entertainment purposes, do just that.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on over to PSG right now, because there have been reports that Kylian Mbappe, that the team offered him a 2-year contract extension worth around 50 million euros per season. Plus, we're also talking about a 200 million euro loyalty bonus. Wouldn't that be nice? Wheels, do you think he's worth this kind of money, or do you think PSG should just cut ties?
Well, to a regular club, the answer has to be no. Who can actually afford to pay that? But PSG is not a regular club. This gets to my previous argument. They're run by a state. They're run by Qatar. Money isn't an object. And sometimes those values and morals that, we try to hold individuals up to high standards. I mean, it doesn't apply to the club. Manchester City is owned by UAE. Newcastle's now run by the Saudi royal family. Money isn't an object. So if you're PSG, you're just sign the check. This again gets into the dangers of in the Roman Abramovich story. It's you're willing to play ball as long as the cash is flowing and there's, not clear and present controversy in the moment. And I think that some of this needs to be reevaluated. And this is why very few clubs can compete with the sort of money that's being thrown around, because it doesn't matter to these people. It's not a business. It's a vanity project. you know, which benefits a whole lot of people, by the way. It's not all bad news, but you know, football's going, I think with the rest of the world right now is going to be going through it a little bit, kind of evaluating where they stand on certain issues. So I think there's a lot to be figured out here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where are you on that, Charlie?
Yeah, no, I agree that PSG they're one of those clubs that don't operate as normally owned football clubs would. I mean, it's not like this is money that could be spent elsewhere that they're choosing to pool and put on Mbappe, right? It doesn't matter. They're just they are offering him literally the sun and the moon, whatever, for him, because he's the crown jewel of the club. He's a national hero in France, playing in Paris. Obviously, you don't want to lose him to Real Madrid because he's the star. But I think realistically, if he was going to stay, then he would have signed a contract like that already. Like, I think that this is maybe a last-ditch kind of effort, a last-ditch thing that you put in the media so that maybe changes the narrative a little bit. But I'm fairly confident that if Mbappe wanted to stick around, he could have asked for this contract a year ago. And
PSG could pay him whatever he wants, right? Exactly. So that's...
I just wonder what would be his motive to leave. It's not like PSG is not successful. It's not like they don't, you know, obviously make runs at league titles and Champions League. I would just be curious to, you know, hear the motivation, unless I missed that somewhere, right? Like,
well, you go to a better league. You go to a better league where you test yourself.
And that's what it would be, I guess.
La Liga has a much bigger profile. You know, Real Madrid, historic. It's a bigger club than PSG.
He's spoken for years, like specifically about it being his dream to play for Real Madrid, which I'm sure doesn't rub PSG fans the right way. But
well, no kidding.
It happened with Cristiano Ronaldo with Manchester United. Like, look, it's a massive club with a great history, a club that's ambitious, willing to spend. There's a lot of good reasons why to go to Madrid, and I can absolutely understand why a move like that, you know, could very well be in the cards for Mbappe.
Sure. And I know when you're looking at leagues, you're obviously looking Premier League, La Liga, and then, you know, you start to do your Bundesliga and your Liga. I get all that, but I also get 50 million, 200 million royalty. How about that as well? All right. So it was announced yesterday that, hey, we're in the year 2022, but I'm going to take you back because on June 4th, we will finally crown a 2020 Canadian champion. Forge FC, Toronto FC, you know the story there. Obviously, the pandemic not making that game possible. There was an agreement between the two clubs that Toronto FC would be the one to go and represent in CONCACAF Champions League, because as we know, the winner of the Canadian Championship is the one who earns that berth. Toronto FC would get the privilege of doing that, and Forge would get the privilege of hosting this. So they finally now have announced the date, June 4th, Tim Hortons Field. A lot of people right away, Gareth, as you can imagine, you know, kind of took to Twitter and mocked this a little bit. Like, oh, yay, let's crown this 2020 champion. Why is this game important? And why is it so important that we here on OneSoccer will be airing it?
Yeah, a number of different reasons. Like, you know, when you go back, you know, and look in the record books, there's going to be a big asterisk beside the 2020 champion. And we all know the reasons. We all get it. Unfortunately, we went through a pandemic and then schedule congestion in 2021, which made it virtually impossible for anyone to take part. Like, you could never have asked Forge last season to play even one more game because there simply wasn't time for it. So for me, more football is better. The more, the merrier. The trophy's kind of secondary. And I can't believe I'm actually saying that in this game. I want to see for the first time Hamilton against Toronto. Forge against TFC. Like, you know, there's some crossover between fans. I think that this game does matter. I think that Forge want to, you know, give TFC a really good go. TFC going to play down the QEW in Forge's familiar surroundings in Hamilton. Like, there's a natural rivalry between these two cities. And I don't care if it was 2020, 2021, whenever. It's about time that we ignite this and see how it plays out. So it's another great Canadian soccer rivalry that's going to, you know, come to be right before our eyes. And I think there's some absolute value in that.
So let me jump in here because I want to set you up this way, Charlie. I mean, first of all, I think, you know, show some respect for the Canadian Championship. And I do think that, you know, it's nice to know that we can crown a champion in 2020. Yes, you would obviously love the implications, which is a berth in CONCACAF Champions League, but I still think it's something special, and to honor that Voyageurs Cup and to know that, we don't have a champion in 2020, so let's crown one. But here's the thing, Charlie. It's also just fascinating from a point of, once again, we're going to see a CPL team go up against an MLS side. And given what you've seen from Forge in not just recent league play, but obviously CONCACAF League and then qualifying for Champions League, and now we've just seen the new look TFC once, right, just against FC Dallas. But how do you even see that playing out? Do you see Forge being able to give TFC a challenge?
Of course they can. I mean, they took CF Montreal with a pretty strong lineup to penalties last year and lost by that close on the penalty shootout. I mean, I'll be fascinated to see how TFC approach this game, right? It might depend on how they're doing in the league at that time. If they're comfortable putting a lot of resources towards this game, I think that they'll certainly care and they'll want to win this game, but it's not impossible that maybe they rotate a little bit of the squad. Maybe they're not quite as up for the game as Forge are, because Forge, as the CPL team, always want to test themselves against that team, right? Especially a local, if we want to call it a derby kind of game like that. I mean, you've got players in the Forge lineup that came from TFC or left the club. Kyle Becker, Ashton Morgan will certainly want to play against that club, and they'll be very up for it. So it's going to be fascinating. And the other thing is, I just want to know how all in we can go on the time travel sort of thing. Like, can we wear 2020 kits? How do you award the George Gross Trophy for the MVP of the Canadian Championship? Can you give it to players who played in that MLS mini tournament in 2020? Can Pablo Piatti win it?
Oh my goodness.
It'll be fun no matter what, I think.
I take my 2020 body over what I have today. So if you figure this out, Charlie, hook me up, please. And thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind my age going back 2 years as well. That's for sure. But I think we all have a little PTSD from 2020. Ugh, I am happy we are in 2022. But either way, June 4th, that game will be played between Forge and Toronto. And we've seen upsets. You just alluded to an almost upset there, Charlie, because, they went to penalty kicks. I guess it was, Forge and Montreal, and it was right down to what the goalkeepers were kicking, right? I mean, it came down to Kristen Henry.
I'll say this about 2022 though, Andy, like for TFC, most likely you're going to see a whole lot more Canadians playing for TFC than you would have seen them in 2020. And I know that's something that's important to a lot of Canadian soccer supporters, is the Canadian representation on the field. Forge, absolutely. But this TFC team, so many of those younger players who maybe weren't quite ready in 2020, well, they're right in the mix now. And throw in two players who have played at Tim Hortons Field and won championships in Tim Hortons Field with McNaughton and Chung, who, would likely step into roles as well. That I think that there's going to be more Canadian content, more established Canadian content, and better Canadian content that this game's being played this year than we would have experienced 2 years ago.
But now let's come back to present day in 2022, and just given the past where CPL teams have had some, have made MLS teams go, whoa. I mean, obviously we know about Cavalry against Vancouver, and then Pacific as well, and then yes, Forge taking CF Montreal, right to the end there. Do you think, Wheels, that this could be the year 2022 in the Canadian Championship that we can see a CPL team in the final?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Like you mentioned, we've come close before. I got a feeling that all three MLS teams will be fighting tooth and nail for a playoff spot come this year. I think CF Montreal is a little bit better. It might be a little bit more comfortable for them, but how much of a priority will the MLS teams place on the Canadian Championship, and can they be had? We've seen success stories from CPL teams. I think that gap continues to shrink because of the emerging Canadian talent at both levels. I think that continental experience that Forge has gone through most recently in the Champions League, Pacific will go through, CONCACAF League this year. I think that all of these accrued experiences just put the Canadian Premier League teams in a much better spot. So it's going to force maybe the Canadian MLS teams to test their depth and make sure that it is up to par. If not, they might be in for a rude awakening. So look, if we're talking percentages, 30-70, 70-30 probably makes sense, but absolutely they do have a chance.
Yeah.
Charlie?
Yeah. I could definitely see it happening. I mean, obviously, considering how close Forge were last year, it's going to be interesting to see when these matchups happen this year, especially whoever the Whitecaps draw. I think, because I think there's probably going to be a lot of pressure on them this time, because the Whitecaps have lost 2 CPL teams in 2 consecutive tournaments. Right? I actually don't think they've ever beaten a CPL team, so there's going to be a lot of pressure on that club to, come through that round and to, make more of an impact in this tournament where they have actually traditionally maybe not been to the level that they would want in the Canadian Championship. So that whoever they draw, that is going to be a fascinating game, I think, to watch.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate, if I may. And I'm going to say not yet. I don't know if a CPL team will make the final this year for these reasons. We're back to the MLS teams having a normal schedule. Yep. Right. They haven't relocated. Yep. They're home. They're going to have their bearings and, everything is just going to be working at a normal scheduled programming as per usual for them, so to say, right? To your point, Charlie, I was going to bring that up. Vancouver's been embarrassed enough. I don't think they want to be embarrassed anymore. We know CF Montreal is ticked off given, how last year went for them. We know they didn't dress their top squad. Gareth, you and I were working that night where you did not hold back and say they need to take this a little bit more seriously. And then what ended up happening? They did that because they wanted to make MLS playoffs, and they didn't even do that. They don't want to have egg on their face either. And I can't see Bob Bradley, being a brand new coach with Toronto FC, not wanting to just make his mark everywhere in anything, be it, league play and Canadian Championship play. And, I definitely think, he too obviously wants to qualify for CONCACAF Champions League. I just think it's a different mindset for the MLS teams this year. So I'm going to say
great arguments. He sold me. Yeah, makes sense.
But I still think that doesn't mean I don't think CPL teams can challenge them. I just don't know if we would see one in the final yet this year. Let's go back to MLS, but not talk about a Canadian team. This would be Houston Dynamo. And we know there's precedent there, obviously, right, with clubs signing big names. This is nothing new to soccer. It's just in the sports world. You sign big names to attract fans and to get butts in the seats and to sell jerseys. And that seems to be the case with Houston Dynamo, who have been struggling of late to attract fans. And Pat Onstad has made a big signing, a big splash in Hector Herrera. So coming on over from Atletico Madrid, the midfielder who also plays for the Mexican national team. Charlie, what you make of this move? Like, do you think it would actually have the effect that Pat Onstad would like to see it have?
I think it totally could. I mean, I know that it's nothing new for MLS teams to make big signings, but it's somewhat new for the Houston Dynamo too. I know that they've got new ownership now. They've got Pat Onstad in place. They've got a new coach as well. Hector Herrera is a really good player. I think it was only a month ago that Tata Martino, the Mexican national team coach, called him their best player. And I know that, opinions around Martino himself are a little like maybe not great at the moment, but the manager clearly values him very highly. And I think that specifically that's a player that can really bring that fan base in Houston to life. They're a team that's kind of seen their attendance dipping every year. They've made the playoffs once in 8 years. So I think it is a really, really, really good signing for that club because of the profile of the player, but also just for what he represents and what he can be in that market.
I'll be quick on this. He's one of my favorite players in CONCACAF. I love Hector Herrera. I have for quite some time. I think it's a coup for not only Houston, but Major League Soccer. For Houston, I mean, they have a strong, Mexican population there. And when you bring over one of the top Mexican players to play for you, that will be taken notice of. This is a player that could have gone back to Liga MX and be one of the best players in that league. And instead, he's going to be playing in Major League Soccer. So it's a big deal. And I don't care if he's 32. I don't care what they paid. It should be priority for MLS to keep on swinging big, try to bring in big players that fit the market, that can make a difference both on a local and national or international level. And I think Herrera ticks all the boxes.
I'd love to see who's going to end up selling more jerseys. Will it be Herrera in Houston? Will it be Insigne with TFC? We need to keep an eye on those sales. Somebody get me those numbers.
Yeah.
When they become available, because I think that would definitely be a coup for those teams and obviously MLS. Great stuff, guys. Always a pleasure. Reminder to everyone watching to go to our YouTube channel on Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern time for free. We are showing you the round of 16 match for the Canadian women under 20. It's the CONCACAF Championship. They're taking on the Cayman Islands. This tournament acts as a qualifier for the FIFA Under 20 World Cup later this summer. So round of 16, 7 p.m. ET Friday, right here on OneSoccer.ca, where you get all this great content. Later.